It's hard to say, but I think that this is symbol for the point where Belgium is in the women's cyclocross. They've been dependent on Kant for the last years. Kant was absolutely nowhere in Beringen. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social podcast. Today, I, Noah, am again joined by Issam.
Hey everybody.
Antoine.
Hello.
Today we will be talking about the Ethiascross in Beringen and the EKZ-cross in Bern. Let's start off with the Ethiascross in Beringen as it was the most important one. It took place yesterday, so that was on Saturday, and it was a real tough race. Issam, tell us a bit more about the men's race there.
Yeah, so with the men race it was early on Toon Aerts, Iserbyt, Hermans, Quentin Herrmont and Daan Soete who were opening the race very hard. Behind them it was Van Toerenhout and Van der Haar that lost contact with them in the first lap and had to chase. In front it was Hermans later on who was unable to follow that pace and he blew up. Again, Daan Soete was very impressing to be honest. We didn't see him in Gieten and now he looked very good. Iserbyt made some mistakes in the downhill again. That didn't help his confidence, I guess. And both downhill and uphill as well. Toon Aerts was just way better than the other companions. And halfway through the race, he was just able to get away from them. And they never saw him back. It was again a back-to-back victory for Toon Aerts. I think already his third of the season. With Iserbyt in second, he was able to hold a very upcoming Van der Haar up, who was third. Daan Soete lost a little bit out in the end of the race, but he managed to stay in the top 5 and finished 5th. In front, in 4th place was for Michael Van Toerenhout.
So it's again Toon Aerts that took the win. It's his 3rd win in a row. Do we really think that this year he's edging out Iserbyt at the start, or do we still think that Iserbyt maybe is experiencing some kind of hamper from something?
I think this year Toon Aerts came ready to play at the start of the season, got in that winning mood early on, and well, I haven't really heard anything about Iserbyt having issues.
No, he said himself that he was peaking for November, December. If I am now correct, we are in October, so maybe his peak form is going to come in November. We don't know, but so far it looks that Toon Aerts has the edge on him.
But it is a sheer contrast compared to the first race of the season in Lokeren, where Iserbyt won with almost a minute advantage over Aerts. What do we think that caused this turnaround of maybe momentum to the side of Aerts?
Yeah, we don't know what Aerts did before that race. It can be that Aerts had a very hard training program and just had some rest to do that race. We don't know how Aerts was at that point, and maybe it was just because of hard training before that race, then didn't take enough rest, that he was just not good enough. And then after that, he has this form and it looks very good, and he just has the edge on Iserbyt at this point.
And of course he has the momentum. I mean, winning 3 weeks in a row, probably next week he's starting there in Ruddervoorde with confidence sky high.
Cyclocross is also a mental game, and I think having the advantage in that one certainly goes a long way to winning races.
Iserbyt, however, at the end of the race did make some sort of move to his knee, and before I think he said something about his knee. However, I'm not too sure what I should think about this. Personally, I mean, on one hand I want to believe Iserbyt, but on the other hand, if it's really that bad, he wouldn't be starting, or is that just me?
If it was that bad, then he shouldn't be starting, I think. But maybe it was, we don't know what he did in the warm-ups. Maybe if he had a crash there or something, we don't know. But honestly, I think just that he was beaten on class and class only. And I think Iserbyt is just not in the shape he wants to be. And he's just maybe a little bit frustrated, I guess.
I think that if you actually have knee troubles, you just shouldn't be starting an Ethiascross. If it was a super prestige, a race where it actually counts for classification, sure, start it. But this is just a one-off race pretty much, except for the new classification of the fastest lap that they brought in.
Yeah, and I think that as well, because Iserbyt, it's not only this week that he got beaten last week in Gieten and the week before in Kruijbeek, and every time it's by kind of the same margin, or around half a minute. So I think indeed Aerts has made a super strong start to the season, and I guess you could say the same for his teammate Lars van der Haar, who finished third. Tell us what you think about him, or more his performance that he did.
I think this is also the kind of course that suits him. He is, of course, quite a small rider, not really into all the running stuff, and climbing parkours is going to suit him well. Just continuing the trend over that has been going for the past few years, just being a very consistent rider, and sometimes on these courses that suit him, just gets to the podium and maybe even a little more.
Yeah, and he wasn't far off from Iserbyt in the end. It was only like 9-10 seconds. So I think Van der Haar is, he's aging, and he's a little bit changing as a rider. It's now because with Beringen, you have a very long climb. So maybe that suits him now a little bit more, before he was more a short interval rider. And now he's maybe going for the longer base type of rider, Van der Haar.
If we take a look at the rest of the top 10, we already had Aerts as winner, Iserbyt as second, Lars van der Haar as third, Michael van Toornaert finished fourth, Daan Soete fifth, Laurens Week finished sixth, Thomas Mijn, or Mine, I don't really know how to pronounce it, he finished seventh, Corné van Kessel 8th, Quentin Herrmont 9th, and Rijnkamp finished 10th. If we look at this top 10, apart from the top 3, the first name that really stands out to me is Daan Soete. Tell me what you guys think of his performance, because in the beginning of the race he actually was riding in the front and put pressure on Aerts and Iserbyt, and at some time even distanced both of them.
Yeah, Daan Soete was had a very, very good performance. I didn't expect it from him. I heard from the commentators and also later from himself that he was riding that race in Beringen on the mountain bike, or the parkour at least, a lot of times. So he knows his way around that parkour. It was even that Toon Aerts said that he actually copied Daan Soete on the downhill, and that made him go faster downhill. So Soete really knew his way around, and I think it's also a home advantage for him.
I think it's also nice to see Daan Soete up there again. Of course, transferred away from the Pauwels Bingo team for this season, I believe. And maybe he has got some of that revenge in him, trying to prove them wrong, that they shouldn't have let him go.
And then he finished in front of Laurens Week, one of the guys who was one of the 3 main guys in the beginning of the season. I think this wasn't the parkours for Zweek. What do you guys think?
It really doesn't suit him, this parkour, I think. I think he was very happy that he got over it. That is not a race that's for the classification. And he's probably just going to move on and think like, we're done and let's move on to the next race.
Someone who maybe can take some momentum from this race is Thomas Mijn. He finished 7th for Tormans as well. Personally, I am very pleased with his performance. I like Thomas Mijn. And it's very good to see that he is the only non-Dutch/Belgian guy who finishes in the top 30. What do you guys think? Is this... I mean, last year he already got 4th, but it's still kind of a surprise that he finished 7th here.
I'm always excited when I see different nationalities in the top 10. And it's also funny that he finishes first of his team as well, Tormans Cyclocross, as he is, of course, a teammate of Corné van Kessel and Quentin Herrmont. So really nice to see him making some steps.
Yeah, it's really really good for cyclocross as well, that we have a Brit in the top 10, and it's not Thomas Pidcock. So I mean that's really good that we have someone outside of those Belgium and Dutch riders who are able to get in the top 10 with the men's race. And he's young, so we will see him more over in a couple of years.
Yeah, and I do think that this type of parkours, the more harder parkours like this, I mean, we already said it in the beginning, on this type of parkours, if you're the strongest, there's really no way that you don't win. Unless you, of course, have bad luck or crash or some punctures, which actually happened quite a lot of times, which isn't a surprise if you're riding an old mine. But Thomas did good here. He finished 7th. Last year he finished 4th here, but with a significantly weaker starting field. I think he can be happy with this and take some momentum from this. Someone who is clearly still searching for that form and momentum is Quentin Herrmont. He finishes 9th after again a strong opening lap but then falling back. What do you guys reckon? That this is still, like what I said last week, that this guy is still probably thinking he has the level that to compete with Aerts and Easybeat like last season, but because of his crash in the Dauphiné, he doesn't? Or do we think that there's maybe more with Quentin Herrmont?
At this point, I think that's quite clear. He is just blowing himself up in the first lap or two, and it's not helping him. He probably could have done quite a bit better on at least time difference, and probably would have beaten Corné van Kessel if he just searched for his own rhythm at the start of the race instead of trying to challenge for victory, which clearly he isn't yet able to do.
Especially on these type of parcourses, it's really easy because it had 2 super long climbs, and if you're already tired at the bottom of the climb and you can't push those watts if you go up, I mean, you can easily lose 20 seconds on one climb, and that's really what happened to Quentin Herrmont. He finished just in front of the young guy Ryan Kamp in 10th. We've already talked about him quite a few times. He's doing a really good job this season. Some other young guys that noticed me was just outside of the top 10. Thibaut Nys finishing 15th. I mean, Twan, you already said this. If Thibaut Nys finishes 15th, it's already a good performance. But he also punctured at the bottom of the climb. Needed to ride up all the way to the top where the pit zone was to change a bike. He was probably in contention for top 10. Do you think he could have ended in the top 10?
I think at the moment before he punctures, he was riding somewhere around there. So I think it would have been a possibility.
And Issam, there were some other guys around him as well, kind of his age as well. Emiel Verstrenge, he finishes 13th, same age as Thibaut Nys, rides for Tormans. Pim Ronhaar, ended just in front of him, 19 years old, rides for Paul Sausen. Do you think that we will see these guys in the top 10 later on this season?
I think they will have their chance to be in the top 10 for sure. If we will see them, that's another thing, but because there will be also the 2 main guys who are riding the Ronde van Vlaanderen that need to come back. So that's going to be hard for them because there will be more people in front of them for sure. But they will have their chance, and they need to take that chance with both hands to get in that top 10 because it will only help them going further in their career.
I mean, I don't want to go into it too deep on the riders that participated in the Tour of Flanders, but we really don't look at it. I mean, 2 cyclocross guys, 1 and 2 in the Tour of Flanders, Van der Poel and Van Aert. The rivalry from the cyclocross continues, and they aren't the only ones. Tim Merlier, Gianni Vermeers, also guys that will come back to cyclocross, and I think you're right. These guys are strong on the road, and it will prove that they can also do bits in cyclocross, and it will make it harder, but at the end of the day, I don't know when exactly they will be coming into the cyclocross.
Yeah, but that's what I meant as well with they will have their chance because they can't be doing all races, those road guys, or as I call them now, road guys. But they have to be patient, and there will be races where they have a good start, and then they can end up so easily in the top 10. But they then just have to keep that top 10, and it will come. It will come with time for those guys, definitely.
Another good thing that was there this weekend was that for the first time this season, there were also the support races, more like the youth races, the newcomers and the juniors. Great to see that they get their chances to race on a competitive level with the international scene. There were quite some familiar faces. In the newcomers race, the son of Erwin Vervecke participated, and in the juniors race, I was pretty happy to see that. There was an Italian, Lorenzo Maccinelli, I think is his name. He rides for, Maccianelli is indeed his name, and he rides for the youth team of Paulshuis. I'm not too sure if it's called the same, because last year they had 2 different youth teams running there. But anyway, pretty happy to see an Italian compete there, and hopefully he can make a step up. I mean, it's still early, but Italy has some great cyclocross fans, and it's a shame that they don't have any riders to support for at the moment. Another race that was on there was then the women's race. Twan, tell us a bit more about the women's race.
The women's race was a really interesting one. Right out of the start gate, it was Denise Betsma who took it on, and she went for a really long solo. Behind, we had a battle between Worst, Lechner and Alvarado. Sometimes Van der Heijden and Van Alphen getting quite close to that one, as well as Van Androoy. But those three really stood out, and they ended up taking it to the last lap, where they were more than a minute behind Denise Betsma, taking a really comfortable victory in Beringen. Really doing an excellent job getting through that first lap really well, and then just able to take it on. And in the final descent, it was Worst who tried to take it on from the front, took a lot of risk, and unfortunately it didn't pay off. In the second to last corner of the parcourse, she crashed, and well, she didn't even end up finishing on the podium or even in the top 4 in that group. It was Alvarado who ended up taking second spot, Lechner in third, and Worst, I believe, came 7th.
Indeed, Worst came 7th, and how different is this than when we were speaking to each other last week? We were afraid that Alvarado might become the new Van der Poel, but this week, Betsema really showing us that on this hard parkour, she was better than Alvarado. Alvarado, she personally to me looked to be lacking a bit. I don't know how you guys see that, but she made that one mistake on the tricky off-camber where she, quite funny, fell down towards where her boyfriend was standing, Royans, the cyclist from Alpecin Phoenix. It was pretty funny to see. Of course, it was not funny for her that she made that mistake because it cost her. She needed to chase. I don't think she would have won otherwise, but I mean, do we really think that this is going to be something that we can see this season, like a bit like it used to be in the men's race, that depending on the parcours, different type of riders will stand out?
I think that's definitely the case. I also think we saw a little bit of tiredness on Alvarado. I also think her trainer said as much, that the Worlds of Mountain Bike and last week just really have taken a little bit of a toll on her. But indeed, the parcours will definitely show who is the best. So that may differ from parcours to parcours.
Yeah, she had indeed a very busy program before the cyclocross season, definitely, and probably that have played. But I think also that she didn't expect Betsema to go that early and to actually stay away. And I think all of them didn't expect that, and Betsema just made use of that and won the race.
Yeah, I think after 3 laps, they probably knew, but they also probably knew that the gap at that point was just too big and that Betsema was just that much better than them on the day.
Yeah, Betsema was indeed crazy strong if you ask me. However, the battle for second place was pretty interesting. Most of the time Alvarado, Lechner and Worst, they were there all the time. At some point Alvarado fell back then. She came back, it looked to be like Annick van Alphen was going to join. Annick van Alphen blew up. Then Shirin van Androoy looked to join, but she blew up as well. And then Kastelein closed quite a significant gap. It was a pretty fun battle, and then in the end Alvarado came out on top. In front of, Worst looked to have the upper hand there going into the final descent, but she crashed. Tell us what went wrong there.
Taking too many risks. When at the end of the day, it's an Ethiascross. You kind of shouldn't be going that hard, I think, on the descent. Also, a weird corner to crash in. Not nearly the hardest corner, I think, on the parcours. Bad luck, I guess.
To me, it looked like a front wheel lockup, that she took too much speed, and then that first she lost her front wheel because she was taking too much speed, and then maybe she tried to brake mid-corner, and it looked to be quite a bit of loose sand in that corner, and then she went down. But personally, I don't think, if you're racing, you don't think, oh, this is just an Ethiascross. No, if you're racing, then in your mind there's something that switches, and it doesn't matter which race you're in, you want to finish as high as possible, and if that's second, it's second. However, she did take too much risk, if you ask me, because it's a downhill. If you go a bit slower, there's no way that they can go around you. It's just, and she didn't have a gap or anything. It was just, they were pretty much on her wheel. And then in the end it cost her second place. Luckily, she didn't get injured there, because then it would be pretty, not only sad for herself, but it would be a big blow for the cyclocross season, because I'm looking forward to seeing Worst against Alvarado, definitely they will be there for sure. And Betsema, Kastelein, I'm looking forward to that. Brandt, she wasn't even there because she had a knee injury.
Hopefully Vos eventually as well.
Indeed, there's just so many races and so many racers and so many races that are coming up that it would be pretty bad if Worst crashed out. Luckily, she crashed on a shoulder that she broke earlier this season, but luckily she escaped. Who also escaped was Eva Lechner, who was in her wheel at that point. Eva Lechner came second at the World Championships mountain bike. Issam, tell me what you think about Eva Lechner.
Well, she was very strong in the race. And this hard terrain, it's a atypical race, of course, Beringen, which is normally a mountain bike parkour. Now it's used for the cyclocross of Ethias. But you could really see that she has the form of the mountain biking, and that she was in good shape. However, about that crash with Worst, Lechner lost out there a lot because she was in her wheel, had to avoid her going around the outside, while Salin was able to go through the inside, and was able to take way more speed in that second to last corner. And that is what I think, that Alvarado was second. Probably I would have. Lechner is a very fast girl in the finish. I think her second place in the mountain bike race World Cup, World Championship actually, showed that. So probably I think that Worst and Lechner were just stronger than Alvarado, and Alvarado should be very lucky that she was second.
Let's take a look at the rest of the top 10 then. We already had Betsema as winner in front of Alvarado and Lechner. Kastelein ended 4th. Shirin van Androoy ended 5th. Aniek van Alphen 6th. Annemarie Worst, Inge van der Heijden, Anna Kay and Alicia Frank complete the top 10. If we look at this top 10, quite some Dutch girls again. But this is the first time that there isn't a full Dutch podium, with Eva Lechner finishing 3rd. If we look at the rest of the top 10, Shirin van Androoy is a name that stands out to me. She finished 5th. It looks like things are going slightly better for her. Do you guys think that she maybe has gotten into a rhythm?
I hope so, because she struggled a little bit in the last few races. Now finally a top 5. I think she will take that, and she will probably get more confidence over the season and try to move up on the standings. It's not a bad result, top 5, and also the results that she did before, it wasn't that bad, but it was just the expectations that were actually very high.
Maybe too high, because she's only 18, first year under 23, so that means she's turning 19. But yeah. I mean, the race top 10s before, it's not bad, but I mean, what you said, the expectations were maybe too high.
At the end of the day, I think we all hope that every single rider makes a step over the summer, which always makes it interesting for everyone. The expectations kind of rise, but of course not everyone can fulfill them. And I think for the first few races, we certainly saw that with Shirin, but in Beringen she certainly showed that she can get up there.
And maybe the momentum helped, because just earlier this week she signed a contract with Trek for the road, so that means that she will be joining them on the road, which isn't unexpected to me. I already thought this would happen. She's riding for the Telenet Baloise Lions, which will become the Baloise Trek Lions next season, so that there's already a big partnership between the two teams. I saw this one coming, and I think that it's personally a good step for her. Some other young girls that impressed, Marie Schreiber, the Luxembourgish girl we talked about earlier and probably in the season preview, with Twan finished 12th. She had a pretty good start, and Zoe Bakset finished 16th. These are some impressive results. What do you guys think? Can these make the step to the top 10? It's basically the same question as what I just asked about the men who ended just outside of the top 10.
I think these results are really impressive, and of course we will be hoping that they will be making the step to the top 10. But I think for the women's side as well, we will see quite a few very good women joining later on in the cyclocross season. So it's probably going to have to be either quickly or in one of the little bit weaker crosses. But hopefully we can see them in the top 10 one day.
But about these weaker crosses, I mean, nothing against these crosses, but personally, I doubt that there will be crosses like this winter, because so many races are already cancelled that, like this Beringen, like last year, it was indeed a weaker cross because the day after it was Gaveren. But so far this season, it's only looking like for most weekends, there's only one race. And if there's two, I guess most of the guys and girls will want to be riding both of them. Because there aren't really that many races.
Yeah, you need those points as well for the UCI, for the starting grid. So probably an Ethiascross is going to be as important as a Super Prestige at some point. But that definitely helps those smaller races to grow, because we have, of course, those World Cup races who are falling left, right, and center.
Another name that I saw in the results somewhere at the bottom was Maud Kapteins. I mean, for her, she's on a real struggle. After 2 or 3 seasons ago, she had this absolutely flyer of a start to a season with winning races left, right, and center. But she said she actually found the reason for that, and that is that it can be solved. So she will be undergoing a surgery for her femoral artery, and she hopes that will solve it and that she will be able to return to her old level. So fingers crossed for her that works out. However, the Ethiascross in Beringen wasn't the only race this weekend. There was also a EKZ cross in Bern. There wasn't any live coverage of this or any coverage at all, so we're just trying to look a bit of the results, and I will take you through the results of the men's race. It was Michael van Toornhout who won in front of Vincent Bastaans and Felipe Orts. Thijs Aerts finished 5th and Toon van der Bos finished 5th. Another important rider that was starting there was Quentin Herrmont. He finished 13th. We already talked about him earlier this podcast. Does this 13th place add to what we said earlier, that he's probably just not in a good enough of a form because his crash in the Dauphiné?
It's not a smart thing to do, is it? If you have a very hard race of Beringen, you struggled that race, you fell down quite a lot in that race, and then to try and it's probably just going to be for the points, but mentally it will be in a struggle, I think, going on like this with these results, especially if you think that you're able to go faster. I just hope that he gets over it and that he can physically and mentally just bring it up to actually ride with the guys where he should be riding and not blow up every race.
I think it's just a very weird result in general as well. Riders like Toon van der Bos and Dieter van Toornhout and then Kevin Suarez, haven't really seen him race in Belgium, or haven't really noticed him racing in Belgium. And then you have Timo Kielig, Niels van der Putten, Quentin Herrmans and David van der Poel making up 11th to 14th. It just all looks weird to me, especially for Quentin Herrmans. In basically previous year, he would have been up there battling with Michael van Toornhout, who seems to have found that form that he was lacking for the first few races.
I do agree that it's kind of weird and that they probably could have ended higher, but I don't want to underestimate Kuhn or Rouillet, because they both look to be pretty talented riders. There was also a women's race there, and that was another win for Denise Betsema, really showing that she is on fire and actually dominating this part of... she probably dominated this race looking at the gaps. 37 seconds on Magali Rochette. Manon Bakker finishes 3rd on almost a minute. Perrine Clausel finishes 4th and Nicole Koller finishes 5th. Anna Kay in 8th. But this again is kind of a strange result, like Ton said. At the men's race, Verdonschot finishes 6th, De Boer 7th, Anna Kay 8th, Lucinda Gonzalez Blanco 9th, and Norbert Ribeiro only 10th, and Ellen van Looy only 12th.
Yeah, and then Loes Selson 17th as well. Just very weird again to me how Anna Kay and Norbert Ribeiro and Ellen van Looy as well are finishing behind Sophie de Boer. Not really something that I would expect of them. Maybe Sophie de Boer has found some form again. That would be very nice.
I think also the problem is the girls that we are mentioning now with Kay and I think Ribeiro as well were riding Beringen. I just think that the combination of the two races was just a little bit too much. I don't know how that parkour in Bern is actually, but
It's
if
the
that is
same one as the World Cup. It's a pretty fast one.
okay, yeah, but maybe that it's going to be a high rhythm, of course. If you had that hard race of Beringen before, I don't think that the legs will.
And then don't forget probably a night drive as well to get there in time. I agree it could have played a role, but still Laura Verdonschot, she didn't ride Beringen and she finished 7th in the Super Prestige in Gieten, and then he finished 6th today behind Nicole Koller. I had not heard of her, at least in these type of results, and it's not strange that I haven't heard of her, because last year she only rode one cross race. So it's not strange that I haven't heard of her. And Laura Verdonschot 6th, and Van Looy 12th, and Cel 17th. It's hard to say, but I think that this is symbol for the point where Belgium is in the women's cyclocross. They've been dependent on Kant for the last years. Kant was absolutely nowhere in Beringen, finishing 14th on 4.5 minutes behind Betsema. It's hard to say, but at this point there's really nothing coming through for Belgium either.
It's not looking good, no. Kant, it's not really her race, of course. With the long climb, she performs better on a relative flat race and a little bit harder conditions. But no, it's not really looking good for the Belgium cyclocross in terms of women cyclocross categories. And they have to work something out. The talent need to come up, and they need to build a new generation, I guess.
Yes, they have some sort of talent coming through, Julie de Wilde, but I'm more impressed of her on the road. I mean, she did make the step to Ico Krelan, the team of course, Sanne Kant. So that's something. Maybe Sanne Kant can mentor her. But I just hope for the sake of not only Belgium, but also the sport, that they will find talent there. I just hope that they will have like riders coming through, like maybe Sterre Vervloed. She's still junior. She's doing pretty good. So maybe just if she can get even a top 10 at the World or European Championships this season, it can show that there are some signs that things are getting better for them. Hopefully, of course.
Hopefully, yeah.
Then let's take a look. There was also a juniors race there in Bern, and that was dominated by some guys from Switzerland and France. I don't know these guys, but I'll pronounce them. Niels Abersold won in front of Pierrick Burnett, and then the third place went to Maxime Lom. And this is pretty common to see that if there's a race in Switzerland, it's usually the guys from Switzerland and France that come there. If there's a race in Czech Republic, it's the guys from Czech Republic that show up, and usually a few other guys, but not too much of them. However, like I already said, it was pretty good to see that the junior races are coming back. Maybe you guys could tell something about the importance of these junior races for themselves to be able to ride there.
I think for a junior race, that's the best way to get in a picture of a eventual pro contract. If you perform well, you are with your own category, and you are actually in the spotlights. Normally in the Belgian television, if it's a televised cyclocross, they give you five minutes or 2 minutes even of broadcasting, where they give you a summary of what happened in the race. And to build a name, it's very important to have those races. If you win, 8 of 9 out of Super Prestige or something, you gain a name. That was hard. You gain a name, and you can eventually get that pro contract that you are looking for.
And especially in these times of Corona, it's hard for them to be able to ride races. In the Netherlands, there's no races for them. Belgium doesn't want them most of the time, so at least they can ride somewhere. And about that, Bern was actually quite lucky to go through, because just tonight the government of Switzerland announced more measures to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, which puts pressure on the remaining races in Switzerland. And they aren't the only ones that are being pressured, like the European Championships as well. But that will be for a later midweek episode of this podcast that will be released on Wednesday, when we'll be talking about that a bit more, and also the cancellation of Zonhoven. So make sure to tune in Wednesday if you want to hear us talk about that. And otherwise, next week we'll be back, because then we'll be talking about the Super Prestige in Ruddervoorde. So hopefully you guys enjoyed listening to this podcast. I want to thank Issam.
Yeah, thank you for hosting it.
Antoine.
Thanks as well.
And if you guys don't have any last words, then I will say thank you for listening and see you guys next time. Goodbye.